I replaced rice and corn with this soil superfood. My garden exploded with life. I used to swear by rice hulls and cornmeal. They were my go-to soil boosters, easy, cheap, and traditional. But last season, something changed. Despite my best efforts, my plants seemed tired. My tomatoes were slow, my peppers struggled, and my soil felt lifeless. It was like I was feeding my plants but starving my soil. So, I did something bold. I replaced rice and corn with a new kind of soil superfood, and what happened next completely changed the way I garden. Within weeks my soil came alive. Earthworms returned, roots thickened, and my garden exploded with vibrant, unstoppable growth. Today on Soil Sage Chronicles, I'm sharing exactly what I used, why it works, and how you can do it too. No gimmicks, no fluff, just real regenerative gardening that revives the ground beneath your feet. Here's something most gardeners don't realize. Poor growth isn't always your plant's fault. Often it's your soil crying out for real food. Over time, repeated planting, watering, and chemical fertilizers strip the life from soil, leaving it compacted and depleted. It might look fine on the surface, but underneath, the living ecosystem that fuels growth is starving. Rice hulls and cornmeal can help a little. They add texture and a touch of carbon, but they don't actually feed the microbial community that keeps soil alive. To see real transformation, you have to go deeper, feeding the soil's biology, not just the plant roots. That's when I discovered the power of biochar, vermicompost, rock dust, kelp meal, humic acid, and mycorrhizal fungi, a combination that turned my dull dirt into a living, breathing ecosystem. Let's start with the foundation, biochar. This isn't new science, it's ancient wisdom. Thousands of years ago, the Amazonians used a similar method to create terra preta, a dark, fertile soil that still thrives today. Biochar is made by heating organic materials, like wood chips or coconut shells in very low oxygen, creating a carbon-rich, charcoal-like substance full of microscopic pores. These pores become tiny homes for beneficial microbes, bacteria, and fungi that drive soil health. When I first mixed biochar into my garden beds, I made one big mistake. I didn't charge it. Raw biochar can actually absorb nutrients from your soil instead of releasing them. The fix was simple but game-changing. Soak the biochar in compost tea or liquid fertilizer for 24 hours before adding it to the soil. Once charged, it acts like a nutrient bank, storing and slowly releasing goodness to plants for decades, even centuries. Within 2 weeks, my soil texture transformed. It held moisture longer, drained better, and stayed aerated without turning soggy. The microbial life exploded. I could actually smell the earthy, sweet scent of living soil again. Next came vermicompost, or, as I like to call it, the gardener's gold. This is nature's way of recycling waste into power-packed plant food. Worms eat organic matter and excrete castings filled with enzymes, beneficial bacteria, and natural growth hormones. I started by mixing 1 part worm castings with 3 parts soil when potting seedlings. Later, I began brewing worm tea, soaking a cup of worm castings in a gallon of water overnight. When I poured this tea around my plants, the results were almost instant. My kale leaves darkened, my tomato plants doubled in size, and my compost bins started thriving with new worm life. What I love most about vermicompost is how it transforms the soil beneath the surface. It doesn't just feed plants, it rebuilds the microbial network that keeps your garden thriving long-term. Healthy soil isn't just alive, it's mineral-rich. After years of planting and harvesting, many soils lose their essential minerals like magnesium, calcium, and iron. That's where basalt rock dust comes in. Basalt is a volcanic rock ground into a fine powder that slowly releases nutrients over time. Think of it as a slow drip of minerals feeding your plants for months. When I mixed basalt into my garden beds, about 2 cups per square meter, I started noticing stronger stems, deeper leaf color, and more flavorful fruits. My tomatoes in particular tasted richer, almost like they'd rediscovered their full genetic potential. Unlike chemical fertilizers, basalt doesn't burn roots or wash away in rain. It rebuilds the foundation of your soil's mineral profile, supporting everything else in the ecosystem. While basalt feeds from below, kelp meal feeds from above. and it's one of the most underrated soil boosters out there. Made from dried seaweed, kelp meal is packed with over 70 trace minerals, natural growth hormones, and compounds that stimulate root development. I like to mix 1 tablespoon of kelp meal in a gallon of water and drench the soil once a week. You can also sprinkle it directly on top of the soil before watering. It's gentle but powerful, especially during heat waves or pest pressure. Plants treated with kelp meal don't just grow. They adapt. They become more resilient, bounce back from stress faster, and produce stronger, more vibrant foliage. When I combined kelp with biochar and vermicompost, I noticed something magical. The soil stayed darker, damper, and full of earthworms even in dry spells. It was like the garden had developed its own rhythm. If biochar is the foundation and vermicompost is the life, humic acid is the communicator, the translator between roots and nutrients. Humic acid is derived from ancient organic matter and helps bind nutrients in the soil, making them more available to plant roots. It also improves soil structure and water retention. I add a tablespoon of humic acid powder to a gallon of water and use it every 2 weeks. The difference was subtle at first, but soon, my plants began absorbing nutrients more efficiently. Leaves grew lush without extra fertilizer, and I found myself watering less often. When used alongside biochar and kelp, humic acid creates a synergy, a feedback loop where plants and microbes constantly exchange nutrients and energy. It's soil working smarter, not harder. Now this is where the real magic happens. Mycorrhizal fungi form a living web underground, connecting plant roots into a vast communication network. These fungi extend the reach of roots, help plants share nutrients, and even warn each other of pests. When transplanting seedlings, I sprinkle a teaspoon of mycorrhizal inoculant directly on the roots. Within weeks, plants establish faster and grow stronger. Once these fungi take hold, they become a permanent part of your soil ecosystem, improving health season after season. It's not visible to the naked eye, but the difference in plant vitality is undeniable. My garden now feels connected, literally, beneath the surface. Here's the exact mix that revived my soil. Simple, natural, and incredibly effective. In 1 gallon of water, I blend 1 cup worm tea, half a cup charged biochar, 1 teaspoon kelp meal, and 1 teaspoon humic acid. I apply it around the base of each plant every 2 weeks. This mix works like a power smoothie for soil, feeding microbes, enriching structure, and building long-term fertility. Within a month, my garden was unrecognizable. The soil turned darker, roots dug deeper, and the ecosystem balanced itself beautifully. The biggest lesson I've learned through this experiment is simple. Superfood is simple. When you feed your soil right, it will take care of your plants. Rice hulls and cornmeal might give short-term texture, but living soil gives lifelong fertility. The combination of biochar, worm castings, kelp basalt, humic acid, and fungi doesn't just grow better plants, it creates a self-sustaining system that keeps improving over time. You'll water less, fertilize less, and harvest more. If you're tired of chasing fertilizers and quick fixes, try building your soil from the ground up. Trust the process, and your garden will thank you in ways you never imagined. So there you have it, the formula that made my garden explode with life. If you found this guide helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a fellow gardener who's ready to transform their soil naturally. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Soil Sage Chronicles on YouTube, where we turn soil science into simple, practical gardening wisdom you can use every day. Let's keep the world growing, one living handful of soil at a time.